What the hell is wrong with 100 Thieves, Elevate?
The fact that ZETA Division has 6 coaches and they're this bad at the game is unacceptable. Yeah, I'll buy FNATIC. I actually like that. I like that. That's like a solid, I'm buying in a pretty high point, but again, we're going to make money as long as the world doesn't explode.
You literally wrote in our show notes here, yo, is Navi okay? Question mark, question mark, question mark. And the answer is no.
They have 4 coaches. They've got FNS back. How is it? Like, what are they doing, TMV? What are they doing? All right, hello and welcome everybody. This is Cosmic Divide episode 33. We are back. We had a little bit of a hiatus, a much needed hiatus for I think both of us, which we will explain in short before we get into the actual content. TMV, first of all, how are you doing? It's been a while.
I'm doing well. I am a bit tired, but not as tired as you. But yeah, I'm doing good overall. I mean, every time I get to like we're kind of at a mid-season point of a stage, I always think those people who wanted like two full splits of 10 or 11 weeks of everything of this.
Yeah.
2 of those during a year. You people are mad.
Yeah.
You people are so mad. And I think that was something that a lot of people were big on early in the season. I think now probably most people are like, yeah, that's probably not the best idea.
Yeah, I think if we ever get to a point where like specific teams have massive fan bases, we could maybe think about it. But at the moment, the vast majority of people who watch professional Valorant are kind of just fans of like the game and specific players. And yeah, they might have a favorite team, but generally speaking, even like a decent amount of Sentinels fans will probably watch most of
like
America's
or an RG game.
Yeah. So real quick before we get into the actual topics, we obviously didn't do a show last week. We're not going to do a show next week, and that's going to be the schedule going forward. We're going to move to a like bi-weekly schedule for Cosmic Divide. It's just simply too much to do it every week, and honestly, I think we were kind of getting to the point where we were almost talking about too much of the same stuff like from week to week, because like it's like, okay, now bleed is bad again, wow, okay, cool, now Zeta is bad again, and yeah, it feels like I'm flaming
something's don't change.
Yeah. Exactly. But basically, for those who don't know, I am now assistant coaching the Acend Valorant team, so I'm working that job in addition to also doing all of the content stuff for Acend, so I have like no time. I haven't even watched all of the games for once. I usually watch every single game in every single region. I haven't been able to keep up with some of the Chinese games and some of the other ones. And TMV has also been super busy streaming everything, and it was just getting too much for both of us to do a show every week and then also do our full-time stuff as well. So you will still get the podcast. It'll just be a little bit less regular, but it will be a regular every other week thing. Any other thoughts on that, TMV, before we start the rest of the show?
No. I mean, I assumed that we like you say, it was a busy time. Obviously during the off season, I assume we were probably going to do this anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Because there just wouldn't be that much to talk about, probably for the most part. So
what have you been eating this summer, TMV? Or actually, I guess it would be winter. Yeah.
Yeah.
How's your Christmas holiday been, son?
Yeah, it was probably gonna go to this anyway, but yeah, I think this, especially with you getting up at 4 a.m. every other day or every day to yell at Musashi, it just it makes sense, I think, for the both of us. So yes, every 2 weeks, it's fine. Every 2 weeks, like it's fine. You'll get used to it. It's fine.
You know what they say?
I swear, when we first started, we did this like it was just like whenever we wanted to.
Yeah, it was like maybe twice a month if we were lucky. Sometimes I think it took us like a year to get through the first like 12 episodes, and then we just pumped out like 20.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's for the best. Honestly, you know what they say? Absence makes the heart grow stronger. So I know you guys will miss us for a week, and then
I'm pretty sure it's fonder.
Isn't that what I said?
I think you said stronger.
Oh, yeah, I meant fonder.
It's
early for me, guys.
I wouldn't have corrected you there, but you can't, like you said, as people say. and then
people
said
say.
something that people don't say.
Yeah,
So I
nobody
just thought
says that.
that
I pulled a just U.S. politician right there. I just said something completely false and represented it
Yeah.
with
I
strong
don't think he
conviction.
knows what he just said either.
uh,
Shall we get into some Valorant talk?
yeah,
Shall we get into it?
let's move off that topic as fast as possible.
Yeah.
The
Let's
the world is doomed.
yeah. Let's start with Pacific. And Pacific is a bit little different to most of the other regions where there's already, I mean, there's not nothing to play for because finishing first and second matters.
Yep,
And you get a bye. But in terms of playoffs, it's over. It's
we're
done.
there.
We know the six playoff teams, which is, I mean, kind of an indictment of the league somewhat. And I think when you look at the teams who have made playoffs and the teams that haven't made playoffs, other than T1, I think, from early on in the season, you could probably tell, like, okay, global DFM bleed Zeta
Yep.
aren't that good. And they probably aren't going to make playoffs. And really, it was only T1 of the other teams, who haven't made it, who, perhaps were a little bit unlucky. I mean, they still have a positive round differential despite being 3-6.
Yeah, that's so
So
weird.
so maybe they just caught some, unlucky moments at times. But yeah, it's already settled. And so what do we let's start with the Japanese teams first. I think that probably makes more sense to start with the bad. Uh Zeta Division and DFM. Do they have only one good player between the 10 of them?
I think that's a little harsh, but it's definitely I don't know. This season to me was kind of just an indictment of Japanese Valorant as a whole. And I'm a little bit worried for the region. I I haven't had time to pay any attention to tier 2 Japanese Valorant. I assume it's probably making a little bit of progress, but I don't think it's going to be in a spot that is particularly uh good compared to some of the other regions. Like I think you and I are both fairly positive on like the hopes for Korean Valorant, right? Because obviously those teams are doing well. Uh Champions is in Seoul, so there should be extra interest there. But Japanese Valorant, which started off very strong with a big fan base, but then I think there were kind of like rumors like, oh, most of it's like just fans, which is a little bit weird, right? It's like fans of the game, but not so many players. And so the talent pool hasn't really, I don't know, accelerated the development as much as you might hope. I really don't know. I'm not tapped in. I know there are some pretty decent teams in tier 2 and like the like Riddle Order was a premier team that is now playing in challengers and winning in challengers. So maybe there is some hope, but I just am not really familiar with it. As far as the VCT teams go, um, I know Zeta Division has not that bad of a round differential. They're 2-6, -26 round differential, whereas Detonation is -76, Bleed is -77. But I'm gonna be honest, I feel like Zeta Division might be the worst team in the league. Like as far as their overall capacity to do anything. I think the highs that you see from Detonation and Bleed might be higher than anything that I've seen from Zeta. And even though Zeta is a little bit more consistent, maybe they're just consistently not good. So yeah,
I think I mean, they just like the main thing I've always thought with Zeta Division is they made these changes and everyone was kind of like, oh, they need to make these changes, but the changes haven't done anything.
yeah,
The player changes like literally haven't changed a single thing. And they just aren't they just don't have like anything that you like, back in the day, you used to hold on to the fact that like, okay, Laz and Depp, in particular, they can win us rounds, right? And they can, carry us through some things, and really, really send us forward. But like, does that really happen that much anymore? Right? Do you like I can't think of like a game, or even if I haven't even watched the game myself, I don't think I remember looking at a Zeta Division like post-match thread on the Reddit or whatever, and everyone's going like, oh wow, Laz was so good in this game. Oh, Laz and friends, or oh, Depp and friends, but unlucky, like they do with like Nats on Liquid, right? Or like they might do with some other teams where, you've got maybe a star player or something, or like DFM, right? Where every comment on every DFM game is just, detonation focus May, right? Like everything is just May and friends, May and friends. Like, they just don't have that anymore. And th- like obviously everyone goes on about the coaching situation that, they've got a lot of coaches and whatever. I don't really care about that, to be honest, because I think that they don't have the players. And I think that does come back to the tier two stuff, because they've picked up two players from Japanese tier two. And again, it is the same thing that if you look at like the Japanese tier two, I was just taking a quick look at it there. Every team in there that has a winning record, there's three teams with a winning record. Riddle Order have uh Jojo and Soldam, funnily enough, two Koreans. Then you've got Sengoku Gaming, who also have two Koreans. And then you've got Scars, who only have one Japanese player, right? And they've got players from Australia and Russia and
Hmm.
all over. So like that is the fundamental problem, that all of the Japanese like teams in tier two, the ones that have tended to do well tend to, maybe they've got like three Japanese players, like max three Japanese players, and probably their best players, like it was last year, with like Scars and whatever, probably their best players aren't Japanese. And that's a problem now,
Yeah.
because Valorant is so popular in Japan. Long term, if we assume that Valorant in some form lasts as long as like League of Legends does, right, where it's around for like a decade plus,
Hmm.
in a decade, the game is so popular in Japan that there probably will be a lot of, 13-year-old, 12-year-old, 11-year-old Japanese, players who want to get into Valorant, because it's big there, that end up being really good, right? But I think short term, a lot of the people who are, upcoming pros probably have experience still in other games, or, uh, or have been playing like CS or Overwatch or something when they were a child and then have come over to Valorant, right? Um, and so I don't know if those games are big enough in Japan to where, there are upcoming Japanese players right now. So I think this could be a bit of a long-term problem. I do think there is a possibility, like, you know, Loud is a good example of this, right? Where Loud just assembled the five best. I mean, Sadek's actually Argentinian, but like
Right.
they assembled like the five best, and we can compete with like the actual five best. We
Hmm.
look at Loud now that they've lost some of that, right? Like it's not there anymore, right? And I think that maybe that can happen with one of the two Japanese teams. If you had all of the actual legit five best Japanese players on one roster, they could probably compete, but
Right.
that
Like
isn't the case right now.
May,
Laz,
Dep, Laz, maybe Sugar Zero,
yeah,
and then like I don't know,
and who
Anthem or
knows?
something like that
Yeah,
from DFM.
or picking up a,
Yeah.
like the tier two teams do. You pick up a random Korean or whatever, and you make it work. Like something like that. Like yeah, you can maybe compete, but I do think on the whole, it's just a bit of a struggle right now, and I think it probably will be for the foreseeable future. Which I mean by that I mean next season.
Yeah, I think one interesting thing, well, there's a couple things also I think maybe lend as well. First of all, Japanese is sort of like an isolated language to some extent, where it's like there isn't a ton of reason for people to learn Japanese because like Japan is a fairly small country. It's like the only country that speaks Japanese. Sure. If we're including all the anime watchers, maybe there's a reason to learn Japanese. But for the general, like Spanish, for
They
example,
need
right? It's
Aspas. They need Aspas.
yes. Spanish goes across like many countries, right? Obviously, Chinese has a billion people that speak it potentially. Um, English is sort of like the ubiquitous language in the world at the moment. And then obviously other languages do span some multitude of countries. But yeah, Japan is sort of isolated in that regard. And then also, there are shooting games that are popular in Japan. Um, like I feel like there are usually a couple of fairly top Japanese teams in games like Apex and like I think Rainbow Siege also has some pretty good Japanese teams, and I know that there's like a couple of decent PUBG Japanese teams. So it's not like they don't play shooters, but they're kind of different shooters than a tac shooter like Valorant or Counter Strike. Um, and I mean, those games are just popular. Like, there's no reason for an Apex player to not continue to play Apex because the scene is not terrible. Like, it's not, Overwatch dead. Um, and so they might as well just continue to play Apex. It would be cool to see some of these like insane Apex movement players and aimers, come over, pick up the neons and the jets and the raises and see what happens. But for now, it probably won't happen, and maybe that's what they need. Maybe Riot needs to somehow, slowly sabotage the Apex scene, and then we can have the.
As well, though, we are getting to a point where it's
It's
getting
almost
too
too
late.
late. Yeah.
Yeah, you're getting too late to swap over now because the game, the reactions, knowing the reactions, those kind of things, like the game has moved on, to a point where I don't think you could come in completely cold anymore, unless you were obviously unbelievably skilled, and kind of make it work, in my opinion. But let's stop talking about Japan. It's depressing me, to be honest, because we all
Sure.
want Japan to be good, and for just a brief moment we thought the Japanese Valorant was on top of the world, and since it hasn't been. Anyway, let's talk about the other Pacific teams, and let's talk about the Pacific teams that matter, the 6 teams that have got into playoffs. Now, the interesting thing about that is that currently, as the standings are, and this is partly because they played one less game as well, but Gen G are actually in 6th place.
Yeah, it's a
Now,
crime.
now, the way that this works, again, it's the top two get a bye, right? So right now it's looking like PaperX and DRX are likely to get that, because PaperX, they play against RRQ and Zeta, 2 games that you'd think they'd be favored to win. DRX just played DFM, a game you think that they'd be favored to win, and that should lead them to be the top 2 teams, really. Which would mean that Gen G would have to play in a single elim game as well. Now, Gen G obviously have the points in their favor, so it wouldn't be the end of the world even if they lost. But we're gonna rank those top 6 teams. Now, we already did a prediction beforehand, before any of these games in stage 2 were played.
Hmm.
You were telling me earlier that your predictions weren't looking so good. In fact, we already know that one of them is wrong.
Yes, unfortunately, I'm already 0 for 1 on my predictions.
Yeah, you picked T1. All of mine actually look like a decent chance. PaperX, Genji, DRX, Talon.
Hmm.
But I do think, having seen them play now, I think Team Secret are looking really good. And I
Yeah,
think that Team Secret have a very good chance of making it.
I would say that for whoever has to play Gen G, I mean, it's kind of this has been happening with Gen G all year, where like because of their seeding, because of their record, they're just getting put into these group stages and
Yeah.
they're just terminating other teams and their chances of having a good season, right? They did it in the play-in games for stage one. They did it at Shanghai, where they were in the group stage because they were not the first seed. So they're kind of just like, they're like the best team in the region. I think that's kind of undeniable at this point, and yet they're always having to sort of take the hard road to get there,
Yes.
which is not really that hard for them, but it's hard for the other teams because they keep running into Gen G
Yes.
and getting annihilated. Um,
That is a fair point, though, that, whichever one, if we assume that PaperX and DRX do finish in the top 2, someone's going to get Gen G in a single elim game.
yeah,
And you're going to feel really hard done by whoever you are, because all these teams could finish with, they could all finish, with a very similar record. So it could just come down to like, oh, like, imagine your RRQ and your choices, like, you could either play Talon or you could play Gen G in a
yeah.
single elim to go to champs. It's like, bruh. You could tell Gen G, you could just tell them like, hey guys, you're going to win on points anyway, so do us a favor. Do us a favor. Do us a favor. You don't need this game. We need it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so as far as your predictions go, I mean, I guess for mine, I picked T1 because I kind of like the storyline of Stacks making it, and like I mean, I think they legitimately look pretty good at this point. I would probably say that they're a better team than RRQ, like at this
Mm.
current point, but the record doesn't show that out, and so they can't make it. Um, I'm still confident in PaperX making it. I'm still confident in Gen G making it. The next 2 slots are very interesting because I'm much less confident in DRX now, having seen them play a couple of times against good teams where, I mean, they just straight up look like a worse team than they were before the changes. Like undeniably, it's like the changes were not good, in my opinion. I don't know how you feel about it.
I think in the last game that I saw against Talon, I think there was a bit of an improvement, and I think DRX they even talked about this in the post match, talking about how Mako like feels like he's starting to get IGLing in a sense, which is a kind of a crazy thing to say, like in terms of like making that change. Oh, it took you 3 games to like be at least somewhat comfortable as an IGL. Like, why are you making this change?
Yeah.
Why did you make that change then? Doesn't make any sense. Especially when like champs is on the line. Um, so yeah, I agree with you probably that they are still not quite all the way back. But I do think that there is a world where they kind of keep getting slightly better. And if they do finish in the top 2 as well, again, the thing you have to remember is there's 4 slots, right? Or 3 to go through the playoffs. You only have to win 1 of 2 games
Right.
if you get that bye. So like, your chances are pretty all you got to do is not flame out.
And they
So
play
your
DFM in their last game, so they should finish
yeah.
in the top two.
Yeah. And so you should finish in the top 2. And then all you need to do is just not flame out, not absolutely massive choke, because most likely Paper X will win their game. So you're going to have 2 games against teams. I mean, it could be Gen G, which is how DRX didn't make Shanghai, by the way. We should
Yep.
remind ourselves that
Yep.
Gen G choked a game against T1.
Yep.
Against the old T1. Gen G lost a game in the playoffs to T1. That meant that DRX had to play Paper X and
And
then Gen G. And that's why they didn't go to Shanghai, which
yep.
does feel a little a little harsh, really, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, they need to, they'll need to make sure that doesn't happen again. But there is a world as well where I think DRX could win on points. If Paper X and Gen G do make it, and they win enough games and win more than kind of all the other teams that have made playoffs, that they could
Yeah.
just qualify anyway as well. So I think things are looking good for DRX, even if I kind of agree with you that maybe they're, not, they've actually kind of downgraded. But again, maybe long term, it will be good. Who knows, right? Like maybe long term, if Mako does turn into a good IGL and, you have just added firepower into the team, maybe at long term it will be pretty good. I still think that they like Foxy 9 is like a big X factor, I think, in every game
Hmm.
because and not even game to game, sometimes map to map, round to round.
Yeah.
Of sometimes he'll just do random shit that makes no sense and he'll cost them a round. And sometimes he plays things perfectly
Yeah.
and wins them rounds. Like he's a very up and down player, I think, at times. And I think that can sometimes cost them big time. But let's rank these teams then. Let's go 1 to 6.
Okay.
So Genji are currently in 6, but do you want would you put them 1?
Would I put Genji one? Yeah, I feel pretty comfortable doing that, honestly, as far as power ranking go. I think PaperX has taken steps to look a bit better, but
Mm-hmm.
I still, if I had to put these two teams in a match, like a BO3, BO5, either one, I think I'm probably picking Gen G in that series. It'd be very close, but I just feel like playstyle wise, and also the fact that Gen G has shown us that they are a championship team, would put me kind of on their
Yeah.
side.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Even though I do think, yeah, PaperX have looked better. PaperX just always stomp their regional competition though. Like
Yeah.
if you're not named Team Secret, PaperX will stomp you.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. So I
In
think we
in
go
Apex.
Genji Paper X as the top two, and then
Clear top
things get
2.
interesting. And I do want to talk about Team Secret quite a bit because
Yes.
they made a couple of changes. Obviously, they removed their coach, they brought in 2 new players, and they've gone 3-0 with the second best map differential in stage two. Now the caveat is that their games were against Bleed, GE, and T1, so only one like real decent team. I think GE is like okay. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, how do you feel about Team Secret at this current point? I mean, they're basically guaranteed into the playoffs, um, or they are guaranteed into the playoffs,
Yes.
and they are an interesting team because, like, are they a spoiler? Do they have a real shot to go to champs? How do you feel?
I think that they played Genji in their last game, and I
Hmm.
think that's a great game because it's like they both made playoffs, right? They're probably both not going to be able to make top 2, so it's kind of a bit of a free game for both of them, really. Just to try stuff out. But I think it'll be interesting to see Team Secret against a team that has better aim than them, right?
Hmm.
That has better aimers than them, because I do think that like everyone seems to be pretty positive about Team Secret, including myself. I think that they've been good, and I think you could make a strong argument that they should be third in this ranking that we're doing. But as you say, like there's probably been a lot of rounds in those 3 games that they've won where in reality it's like, well, Envy bailed you out, or Jeremy bailed you out, or Wild Oreo bailed you out because they're better than the Bleed Global or T1 players,
Mhm.
right? But when you play against Gen G, they're not going to bail you out because they're not as good as Texture or whoever, right? So I'm positive about Team Secret. I actually think looking at it now, I would say that they have a. I would probably pick them alongside PaperX Gen G and DRX. Though, like if I was a betting person, which I'm not, don't gamble, it's bad. Uh, those would be the 4 that I would pick personally. And so if I would consider it's between Secret and DRX for third, fourth.
Okay, interesting. Um, I'm gonna go in a slightly different direction.
Oh,
I am fairly
you hate
high
them?
on Team Secret. I think they're a little bit of a like paper tiger. Like I think it's a little bit of
Oh, okay.
a facade that
No,
they
I could
are
see that.
actually as good as they appear to be, just because their competition hasn't been particularly good. And if you look at their sort of overall um, season, like they're beating a lot of these teams that don't just straight diff them player to player. And I'm not saying that Secret has bad players. Like I legitimately think that Jeremy is one of the best players in Pacific. I think he's really, really, really good. I think Envy is very good. I think the IGL on this team is very good, and Wild Oreo is super promising. But I think if you stack them up 1-to-1 against a team like PaperX, obviously Gen G, no. Uh, Even a team like RRQ or Talon, it's a little bit iffy. And then if DRX can get their sort of overall game plan together, and Foxy9 has a good series, I think I'd probably pick all of those teams over Secret. Um,
Interesting.
so yeah, I think
Interesting.
Secret might even be the lowest team for me in this ranking.
Wow. Okay. Okay. That's. I think that's a bit of a hot take right now, but
It's
I mean,
between
I'm
them
not
and RRQ for last place, in my opinion.
okay. I would have put RRQ in last.
Hmm.
Um, I I let's talk about Talon now. So you're pretty high on. Well, I'm gonna guess you're pretty high on Talon. Who would you go on? Who would you have third?
I think
Because
I
you
would
don't seem that
probably,
high on DRX.
yeah, I'm not that high on DRX, but I think I would still probably put DRX there now, having seen them beat Talon this week.
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
they've sort of taken that step. Like, okay, I feel like that was one of those matches where if they lose a Talon, then yeah, DRX stocks tanking. And not, not saying anything bad about Talon, but if DRX can't beat any of these sort of like top 6 teams, then they have some real issues, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I would go Gen G, Paper X, DRX, and then probably Talon, and then maybe Team Secret RQ, or flip those bottom 2 is where I'm at.
Okay. Okay. That's interesting. Because for me, like Talon are a bit of an up and down. They're quite
Yeah,
quite an up and down. Like speaking about like Foxy9, I think Talon are the exact same. Where even from round to round, certainly map to map, they can definitely have some big swings.
yeah.
In
They're
terms of
very
their overall
matchup
performance.
dependent too. It like kind of depends on who they're playing, I
Yeah.
feel like, and how they
Like
play.
watching their Haven attack side towards the end, I was like, guys, what are you doing? And then that seemed to carry on to Icebox. They lost a 12-0 half. Have no idea why. How bad is your bind that you're letting Icebox through, knowing you're going to have to play defense side? Someone pointed out that Talon have max won 3 rounds on their defense side of Icebox this year.
Jesus.
And they got 12 0'd, and it was awful. And they didn't know how to play their comp, or they were scared. I don't know. It was just horrific. And yeah, I mean, on their defense side, Bam was 0-6 in first duels in one half.
Jesus.
0-6. Jit
I mean,
Boys on Harbor somehow was 0-3 as well.
are
Uh,
RQ the truth? Are they good? Are they the Vorpus
RRQ,
team?
the truth. I don't think RRQ are that great either, though. I think
Yeah.
RRQ are they are a high firepower team, and when it's going well, it's like RRQ. That's the thing, because they are a high power team, and this was true of them last year as well.
Yeah.
When things go well, they can play some unbelievably good shit.
Yeah.
But when they overheat, which they do quite often, they can play some unbelievably bad stuff as well.
Yeah.
Like they are incredibly up and down as a team. And so that's why it's hard to rank these teams because like RQ did beat Talon.
Yeah.
Uh, like that's a game that did happen and RQ won it. So I honestly do not know. I do not know. I think I think it's very close between those four. You gave your ranking. I would probably put Paper X, Genji. Having seen DRX, I would put them third. I still have a bit more faith in Team Secret,
Yeah, I think
so I
that's
put
fair.
them fourth, and I probably then go Talon RRQ would be my ranking for the Pacific teams. But I think we've talked enough about Pacific. I think the Pacific fans have had their cake at this point,
Yeah.
and we can move on
Yeah.
to other regions. Fairer pastures. Well, not fairer, really. Things are kind of falling apart here in Europe, but let's talk about Europe.
Last thought about
Go on.
Pacific before we go to Europe or EMEA is just I feel like Pacific was probably the region with the most like what's the best way, like societal divide as far as like class divide where it's like you got the rich teams, the good teams, and then you have the really poor teams, right? It was not like a super easy gradient, at least how it ended out, where you got two teams that are really really good, and then you've got maybe three four other very solid teams, and then you have some real bad teams. And I feel like in most of the other regions it was a little bit more gradual as far as like the cutoff.
Yeah,
um even in EMEA and stuff, which we'll be getting to here, like even the teams that are like 2 and 6, some of them probably have a puncher's chance against some of the top teams.
yeah.
But
I
in
like if
Pacific,
you
like you
look.
take any of the bottom four teams and you put them against any of the top six teams, and it's like an 80-20 most of the time.
Yeah, like that's the thing. You got four teams in Pacific that were not good.
Yeah.
Whereas the thing is, like, you look at Americas, you've got maybe two teams that like are clearly not very good, and I think in EMEA, you've probably only really got Koi.
Yeah.
That you can argue like it doesn't have at least a fighter's chance against against other teams.
Yep.
So yeah, we'll move on to EMEA with that in mind. Fix your ship, Pacific.
Yeah.
Fix it. I do think that part of that though. Again, I mean, you're looking at two Japanese teams.
Hire some
Also
better
you're
GMs. I
yeah.
that's my advice, because I think a lot of the roster moves, I think a lot of the roster construction, and I mean, now that I'm a coach, I can say this: the fact that ZETA Division has 6 coaches and they're this bad at the game is unacceptable. And I think like legitimately, it's just not okay to have this many people working on the team and to not understand how to play certain maps that have been in the map pool for the entire like history of the game. Like, shouldn't happen.
Yikes. Anyway, see, the thing is, we talk about EMEA. EMEA general managers have a very easy out though, which is just look at the Turkish league and just sign the best player,
Yeah, just
and that'll be
sign
amazing.
sign a couple of players from the top 3 teams and move on. Yeah.
Yeah, very easy in EMEA. Let's talk about some EMEA teams though, because EMEA is, as we kind of mentioned at the start, Pacific. EMEA, we actually, is very close in terms of the standings overall. There's still quite a bit to play for. A lot of teams. There's 3 teams who are 4-4. BBL are 4-5. So kind of some interesting things still to be played for here in EMEA. Although I do think we are starting to see a bit of a top 3
Hmm.
kind of come about. But let's talk about FNATIC first, because FNATIC were a team that have had a mixed season.
Yeah.
Let's say they started off in kickoff, they didn't make it to Madrid. Everyone was like, "Whoa, they didn't make it to Madrid," and it was kind of like, and the reaction from FNATIC at the time almost seemed like, "Whoa, we thought we could coast to
Hmm.
Madrid. Like, what do you mean we didn't make it?" Then they do make it to Shanghai, and it seems to be going positive, and they win EMEA, and everyone's like, "FNATIC are back." And then they go to Shanghai and they aren't very good. And it's like, what the hell is going on here? Right. But now they've come back. Obviously, Leo has taken his time off. But they look refreshed. They look like they know what they're doing. They look like, and honestly, I do think that the new meta, obviously has helped some teams more than others. And Fnatic, to me, would not have been one of those teams that would have thrived necessarily.
Yeah.
I don't see Fnatic as a team that thrives with change a lot. That's not what I see them in my mind as. But I think that, and it's interesting because they picked up Hero, and everyone when they picked up Hero was like, "Well, this guy doesn't play Sova.
Yeah.
What the hell are they doing?" And I think it's actually been a massive help. And I'm not sure if this was it's either, but they couldn't have known the changes probably when they picked up Hero. So I think that it all just came together at a good time for them because putting Alpha and Dirk on Duelist, we were talking about the problem that they were constantly having throughout kind of the past was that felt like Alpha and Dirk were playing this very, very aggressive game, and the other three were playing not an aggressive game, and that meant that you had like two almost separate teams that were doing very different things.
Hmm.
But now by leaning and this is the thing, right? Split was their best map coming into Shanghai, and that was the one map where they were playing double duelist and they had Alpha on Raze,
Hmm.
and it worked for them. With
Hmm.
Dirk on Yoru, Alpha on Raze, and now they're leaning into that. Not on every map. The Lotus, they're still sticking with the old comp, but on maps like Haven, where they're destroying Karmine Core, you've got Dirk Yoru, Alpha on ISO. It'll be interesting to see if they stick with that after the ISO nerfs. But at this point, I don't really see why you wouldn't. And I think that if I'm Fnatic, I'm looking at our Haven success and our success that we had on Split. I'm leaning into it more. Yeah, I play double duelist on like as many maps as you think you can. I think if I was Fnatic, because it seems to just work. And again, it's a thing that I wouldn't have thought would work for Fnatic, but they're cooking right now. And Hero is also very good.
Yeah. Yeah. Fnatic, I mean, they've been a really interesting team to follow this year because obviously there was sort of some weird stuff kind of going on with as far as Mini stepping down because of the workload. They bring in Elma Putty. People are like, who, why would they pick up Elma Putty? They don't have Anders working with them, who kind of like created their Lotus comp that was insane last year. Everybody's flaming Boaster, and their results have been really interesting because obviously in kickoff, like they lose to Carmine Core, who ended up being the truth, right? So whatever, but they weren't terrible. And then in stage one, they lost to Heretics, who are also the truth. Then they lost to Foot, who are also very good. And they lost to Navi, who at that point were still a team that functioned. Um,
Yeah,
and
we'll get to
then
them.
in the playoffs, they lose to Heretics, who again are the truth, unlucky. Um, they do end up beating Heretics and going to Shanghai, where they end up playing Genji, who wins the tournament. Unlucky. And then they play against Foot, who's a regional matchup and kind of has their number to some extent. So their results have actually not been that bad this year. I think the thing that was kind of worrying was that their Lotus has not looked particularly good, but they also have basically just been playing the same comp forever. People are getting better at playing against it. Um, they certainly looked a bit less disciplined than they were in previous years. I think that's undeniable. There was sort of like moments where you're looking at them play, like post plant or advantage situations, and you're like, this is not the Fnatic that I know. Um,
I would actually push back on that.
really
I think that they did that a lot last year, but just
got
diffed
away with
people.
it. Got away with it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And that this year just hasn't been the case. And
Yeah,
that's why all those memes about Mini fucking going mad even though they're winning rounds.
that's true.
Like that was just happening last year, but they just happened to win. So no one cared.
Yeah, maybe that's true, and maybe this has just kind of been one of those situations where they are having to unlearn these bad habits of like
Mhm.
you can't just do these things by yourself anymore like you could before. You actually have to play as a team, and it's taken a while to get things on the right track. But in season two or stage two, they have beat BBL, who is a pretty tough team. Honestly, they're good. They're dangerous. You can't take them lightly. They beat Vitality, which is again one of these teams that has a very high ceiling but struggles to reach it from time to time. But also is a team that you can't take lightly. And then they 2-0 Carmine Core in the last match that they've played, which is a very good win in my opinion because this was
Yeah.
super one
I
sided.
mean that's three potential playoff teams
Yeah,
that they
these are
just beat.
these are
Yeah.
three very good wins in a row, and to me, it has me. I wouldn't say that Fnatic are at the level that they were in 2023 when they won two international tournaments, but I would say that they are certainly at a spot where they could, like make a top four at an international tournament at the moment. And then if they continue to improve, they could be in that sort of, title contender situation. But I really don't know if they can get there just because we haven't seen them do it. But they're certainly a good team at this point.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. They're definitely good. I think it'll be interesting to see if Leo was like, guys, I'm back.
Yeah,
What
what
would you do?
happens?
What would you do? What would you do? Because, like as I said, I feel like the balance of the team right now is quite good.
Hmm.
You know, but Leo is arguably like one of, if not the best player in the world. So it's a very weird situation. Isn't there a
I
baseball thing about that? What's that called? Something effect? Like a baseball guy who was really good, but the team played better without him.
uh I should know that if it is a baseball thing.
I'm pretty sure it is.
I can't think of it. I mean, yeah, it
Hold
is
on,
an
I'm looking it
interesting
up.
thing because like you say, Leo, I mean, I put him at number one going into Shanghai, and he looked like maybe the best player in EMEA, certainly in stage one. Now, I'm not gonna say this like from me. This is not my opinion. I don't co-sign this opinion, but I'm just gonna put this out there into the air and see what you think. Is Leo a stats player? Is that why we think he's so good? And is his baiting his teammates one of the problems with this team?
No,
Okay.
that's stupid. I was wrong. It was not baseball, it was basketball, sorry. The
Okay.
Ewing theory, Patrick Ewing.
Oh, sure. Yeah, one of the best
Yes.
players to never win a championship. Yeah,
Yeah, sorry, it wasn't baseball, it was basketball. But yeah, Leo is Patrick Ewing maybe.
maybe. But he's already
I
won
don't
two.
think that's
He's already won two
yeah,
tournaments. So that
yeah,
doesn't
yeah. Apart
apply.
from he's already proven himself as one of the best players,
Yeah,
and they would know that they can win with him. But I think that Fnatic, I mean, again, points wise, Fnatic are in a pretty good spot. So even if they didn't, like go all the way, in the playoffs for whatever reason, even though as we said they kind of beat three potential playoff teams
yeah,
in a row, uh, they should be doing fairly decent on points as well because they won EMEA the last time. So I think that they will probably almost certainly make champs. And then, as you say, can they make a? I think a top four is a reasonable expectation. Honestly, at this point,
yeah.
I don't think that's unreasonable. Winning it might be a bit of a stretch. I think you could look around, at teams like Team Heretics, Sentinels, Gen G, Paper Rex. As you know, maybe those teams
G
are still
two
probably
maybe
a
even.
G2 even maybe, yeah. That
Yeah,
maybe, some of like top world teams are maybe still a bit ahead of them. You'd probably not have them favored over those teams, but I think on the whole right now it's really, you know, they're in a pretty good spot, and I think it's interesting because like if they do go to champs with a sub, no one will really expect them, I think, to win the whole thing.
yeah,
And I do think that maybe there is just less pressure because
yeah.
Leo isn't playing.
Maybe that's
Maybe they
good for
can be.
them.
Yeah, maybe that's good for them now because, as you say, like the season for Fnatic feels quite bad. But as you say, like if when you actually go through it and put it in context, like it hasn't been that bad. It's just that everyone expects them to win every single game,
Yeah,
right? And when you compare it to that expectation, it looks bad. But in reality, if you bring it back down to reality, then it's not that bad overall. So Fnatic good. Let's talk about a team that's not good, so good though. You literally wrote in our show notes here, "Yo, is Navi okay?" Question mark, question mark, question mark. And the answer is no.
yeah,
They are not okay. For those of you who haven't been paying attention, Navi so far in stage two, they came out in their first game, they lost 2-0 to Heretics. Okay, fair enough.
yeah,
It's Heretics, but they did lose 13-5, 13-3,
yeah.
right?
It wasn't
So
close.
okay, it was not close, but maybe you were willing to give. Okay, it's Heretics. I'll give them a pass. They then come and play Foot. They then lose 13-11, 13-5. Don't win a map against Foot. Okay, Foot is still a good team. Oh, okay, it's okay, right? They then play Giants. They then lose 2-0 to Giants,
Hmm.
13-9, 13-8. And I think that this Giants game was really where everyone went, okay, panic time, right?
Yeah,
Like maybe if you were heavy on the Navi train, you could have made some excuse for the first two games that they're playing against good teams or whatever. But this is now full panic mode. They
Also,
do play Koi. Oh, sorry.
I was
You
gonna
go
say
ahead.
also full comp switching Lotus, one of the most played, most popular maps between series, and not having any
Yes.
better results. That is a huge issue for this team right now, is they can't figure out what to play on the maps.
Yes. They do play Koi and Gentlemates, so they do have. I mean, you could argue those are the two worst teams in the MEA.
Mm-hmm. I
So
think
if they
that's fair to
can't beat
say.
them, if they can't beat them, like we are in like unprecedented what the
It's
fuck is going on
truly over
territory.
at that point. Yeah.
Yes. But it might be truly over anyway. But that's the thing. They do have two kind of easy games that if they win, they'll be 6-4. They make the playoffs,
Yep.
right? And then we'll see where they go from there. But I'll just quickly talk about what I think is one of their main problems,
Mm-hmm.
um, which is individuals,
Yeah.
because there was a moment, I think, was it against Giants or it was against Foot? I can't quite remember. In one of those games on Ascent, I can't remember which one it was. There was a couple rounds where Shao just went crazy and like won them the round, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like just he gets like a 3K or something. I think it was against Giants. Yeah, it was in this Giants game. So there's a couple rounds where like Shao he wins a 1v3. It's like, holy shit, how the fuck have you won that? That makes no sense. Or
Right.
Artist gets an ace in that game as well to win one of the rounds. It's like, holy shit, you win a 1v2 and get an ace and win them a round. That used to happen a lot for
Yeah.
Navi. That has kind of always been the core identity somewhat of the team, that whether it's Artist, Sugetsu, Zip, and Shell, like someone will step up when we need them to, and they will win us a round. And it did happen a couple times in this giant game, but it stuck with me so much in this game because in all of the other maps that I've watched them in stage two, it didn't happen at all.
Mm-hmm.
There is no like, wow, what a round by this player. He won us the round. That just isn't happening nearly as much as it used to, which I think in general, just if that is your style of play and that's what you're relying on, yeah, no shit, that's not going to happen as much because everyone else is getting better,
Mm-hmm.
right? Everyone else has also now got decent, good players. You're not going to fucking stomp on these people anymore because that's just not how the game works anymore, right? We've moved past that in Valorant terms right
Yep.
now. And we'll get onto another team as well that I think they have another problem with that as well, which is they have let's be real, an IGL that doesn't frag that well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you combine those two things of like, you're not just going to diff people anymore and you've got an IGL that doesn't frag that well. Yeah, things aren't like in 2024 Valorant. Yeah, you're not going to be that great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I was just clicking through each player's stats, and while the VLR rating is not like the end all be all of performance, it is like a metric that you can kind of look at to get a snapshot of how people are doing, kind of against the general population. And Navi in the last 60 days don't have a single player on a single agent doing above like a 1.1 rating. Not a single player. They have like, I think it's like Artist's Breach is maybe positive at like 1.05. Sugetsu might have like a cipher at a 1.01, but all of Angel's agents are well below that. All of Zipen's agents are well below a 1. One being sort of like the average to decent performance on an agent on a map. Um, and so yeah, all of their players are not having good performances. It's
I
not
mean
any
that
one player.
the top rated player overall is Zipan at 0.86.
Yeah, that's not good.
That's like everyone is in the bottom 15
Yeah,
for them. That's how bad it's been.
yeah,
Funnily enough, the top three are all Heretics players.
yeah. Not
And
surprising.
Wood's rating is 1.67.
That is very so. For
No,
people who
it's
don't
still
really
a small
understand
sample
the
size,
VLR
but
rating, the
oh, that's so funny.
a
What
one
was
point
PKA? PKA was like 1.3 or something.
yeah, like a 1.2 is a good rating, right?
Oh yeah, you're
Yeah,
doing real like there's
yeah,
5 players in the MEA with a 1.2 or higher. Like
yeah,
you're doing really well with 1.2. 1.67 is funny.
yeah. That's like it's almost being like two players in one player is how good that is. Um, but yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with you. I think that Navi has a serious issue with their overall approach to the game, and I think they kicked their coach, which is not a good sign, especially somebody who's been with the team for a while. I have sort of mixed opinions about Doom Bros as a coach. Like he's definitely done some stuff that's good, but it's very hard to kind of tell like how good of a coach he is. I don't want to flame him too much, but I don't necessarily think that like he was 100% the problem, but also probably contributed to it to some extent. Um, Another thing that Navi have usually done a pretty good job of is like finding some semi unique things to do in the meta that are not like completely uh off the
Garbage.
wall. Yeah, completely kind of like crazy ideas. And right now, it to me, it seems like they are absolutely lost as far as like what they should be playing on the maps and how to do that. Because like they copied like the foot comp on Lotus, it didn't work. Then they went back to their old Brimstone solo smoker comp, it didn't work. Um, and just overall, looking at their map pool, like, do they have any good maps? I'm kind of curious. I'm gonna go for the last like 3 months and look at their overall map pool. They have one map with an above 50% win rate, and that is Ascent, where they're 3-2. That's kind of been their best map, like when this core has been together forever.
But the
Uh,
problem is those two are the last two games they've played. In the last 2 weeks, they've
yeah,
lost Ascent twice in a row.
yeah,
So like right now, no, they don't have a single good map right now,
yeah,
and that is a big problem.
yeah. That's a huge problem. And then maps are rotating out. I mean, maybe they'll be Haven Gods, maybe they'll figure out Abyss, but still, even with that, Sunset's not going anywhere. They're 1-2 on Sunset in the last like 3 months. They're 1-4 on Lotus. You in the current map pool, you must have at least a good Lotus or Sunset. One of those has to be good for your map pool.
Hmm.
Preferably, you'd have both, or you'd have one of them be your permaban. That's like kind of the only way you can approach the map pool right now. And then you have to have at least sort of like one other decent pocket pick out of like Ascent, Bind, and then I guess like Breeze or probably Icebox would be better. But Navi doesn't play Icebox. Breeze is rotating out. Um, Split is rotating out. Obviously, Split has kind of been one of their better-ish maps where they play like a reasonably good comp. So yeah, I think this team is probably fucked, honestly, for the rest of the season. Like even if they do kind of sneak into playoffs, I see almost no chance that they make to champions.
Yeah, it's really not looking great right now because, as you say, there is a decent chance that they beat Koi and beat Gentlemates. Like that's a possibility for Navi, and they will sneak in with 6 wins, but they won't get the top seeds. So they're not going to get a bye or anything. And yeah, I mean, the thing is, they've just lost to teams. I mean, even like they lost to Giants. Giants aren't even going to be a playoff team,
Yeah,
right? So if you're getting stomped by Heretics, you're getting beaten by Foot, you're getting beaten by Giants. Like you're not going to be beating these playoff level teams. You're going to have to beat someone good to make it to champs.
yeah,
You're going to have to win maybe multiple games against good teams to make it to champs. And right now, there's just no way. They something I don't know what needs to change. They need some kind of come to God moment, but like when they lost to Giants, they didn't look that surprised.
yeah,
Like just looking at the body language after they lost that game, it was kind of like, "Yep, that makes sense."
yeah. They're kind of just like
Which makes me
resigned to
wonder
their
like,
fate at this point. It feels
yeah,
like, yeah,
which is kind of like what is going on? Like come on, guys. Like we gotta be. That probably tells me like I don't know what's going on in scrims, but if that's not going well, and like you say, they're changing their Lotus comp, maybe they're just panicking, they don't know what to do. It could get tough. It could get ugly quick. And I think again, if this team doesn't make champs, they've already used that kind of like scapegoat card of well, it was the coach, and clearly that hasn't. It's got worse, if anything.
yeah.
So yeah, it might be the end of this roster that we've known for a very very long time as one team. To be honest, if they don't make champs,
Yeah,
which would be
I
sad.
do want to shoot them like maybe a tiny little bit of like a scapegoat potentially that they could point to. This is I don't know very much. This is kind of just like random speculation, but I do know that like the Ukraine Russia situation has probably
Yeah,
gotten a bit worse over the last like month or so, couple of months. So maybe there is some because Navi is a Ukrainian based org, right? Like their original
yeah,
offices, obviously they're in Berlin for this, like all these teams, but their home offices, I believe, are in Kiev, and obviously Angel is Ukrainian by nationality. So I mean, who knows? There could be some stuff going on behind the scenes where things are like not good, like internally. like mentality wise because of geopolitical stuff or who knows. But yeah, I mean, it's sad because this roster, like, I can still remember how insane they were. And obviously, you see like
Yeah.
moments, you know, Sugetsu will have some crazy, like, he still has some of the best aim in the world. Shao is still insanely talented. Artist has been kind of a disappointment, honestly, on his return to Duelist. And then Zipan is kind of just, he's kind of just been a role player for them. He hasn't really had these like big raise pop off moments that he used to have. But yeah, they just kind of like lost, and it's unfortunate. But I definitely don't see this roster surviving, not making champs. There's no way.
Yeah. So we will see what Navi are made of. Just to kind of quickly wrap up what I think will happen in EMEA.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I think it's probably most likely that Foot and Heretics will get the first seed. Foot play against Gentlemates and Giants in their last two games. Probably two games they'll win.
Mm-hmm.
Heretics play against Giants, Gentlemates, Koi. I mean, you could Heretics could play anyone right now, and I'd say Heretics are probably going
Yeah.
to win. So that probably going to win those games, and so that will take both those teams to 8 wins. FNATIC can only finish 7-3. Their last game is against Liquid. Uh, Fnatic, I'm pretty sure are in playoffs at this point, but I think
Mm.
that as long as Foot and Heretics don't slip up against some of the worst teams in EMEA, then those two should be getting the bye. And then looking further down the table, though, that's where it gets kind of interesting in EMEA because you've got Navi on 4 wins, and who knows? There is a chance that they just lose out, right? That
Mm-hmm.
it just falls out completely, and they just end up going home. Carmine Core, an interesting team where they play Liquid and Vitality, two other teams. Liquid are 3-5, Vitality are also 4-4. Carmine Core, I think people were pretty high on after their win against BBL. It was like, oh, that's a good win, and then they got absolutely stomped by Fnatic. So it's like,
Yeah.
who knows who's going to turn up. That Vitality play BBL and Calming Core. BBL are 4-5 as well. So there's going to be a lot of like very close, like very important games here to kind of determine the playoffs, basically, which I think is good, right? Like it's literally going to be if you can beat the teams that are right next to you, you will make playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, looking at these teams, there is some world where Navi gets a draw where they play some kind of inconsistent up and down teams where they are able to scrap it out. There is some world
Yeah.
where they could do that. Like, Vitality on an off day, BBL on an off day. If those are the two teams they have to beat to get into champs, maybe they can do it. Maybe they can't. Carmine Core definitely would be my pick out of like Vitality, BBL, and Carmine Core to sort of be the team that does well. But definitely, I think they have a bit of like a mental block against some of the top teams to be able to reach their full potential. And they're cooking some interesting stuff. They've got some interesting ideas about the game. Who knows if those will actually pan out? I'm still interested to see if anybody is willing to kind of buck the trend of, you know, duelist plus double initiator, pop on site insta, just like run it down, rely on aim, rely on just like heavy flash skirmishy type of play. Because nobody's really playing kind of just like, let's control tempo, let's control information, let's play very mid roundy. Nobody's really doing that at this point. Um, and so far, nobody's really been able to stop the other style of play. And so it'll be interesting. It makes it a little bit more high variance, in my opinion.
Hmm. Yes. Shall we move on?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's move on to Americas, where we have some teams that are maybe the expectations were up in the moon, but really they're down. They're down in the bottom of the depths of the ocean right now with the way they're playing. Let's start with 100 Thieves. What the hell is wrong with 100 Thieves, Elevate?
Well, you know what I'm gonna say. I'm gonna continue the narrative that I've been saying kind of since they started to rise up, which is that this team is they're bind merchants. Like they literally have one map that they're good at. And that's all they've ever had the entire year. They've been insanely good at bind. They've scraped away some wins on very, very default Ascent and Breeze comps and Icebox. They play like super default. This is like their Breeze comp was just like 2022 Breeze. Their Ascent is just standard, and their Icebox is a little unique, but it's just like, cryo jet, like can the op carry us? Maybe it can't. The rest of their map pool is not good. And I mean, you've pointed this out many times on your stream. It's like if they get bind in a series, they win. If they don't get bind in a series, they lose. And now they're even
That
losing
changed,
bind
yeah.
because
Yeah.
people have started adopting their comp, which was good. They've figured out what 100 Thieves is doing because it was. I mean, I made a video about it. It was fairly basic what they were doing. It was just good like macro and fundamentals on the map. And I think that 100 Thieves is maybe even falling victim a little bit to that same kind of mentality that they had last year, which is like they got very talented players with very low self-esteem. I don't know if it's not actually self-esteem, but it's like very low confidence in their ability because I feel like Bang hasn't really sort of like fully regressed, but there's still moments where he's kind of like you see him a little bit shaky. Asana's kind of back in like the chaotic, he's like an agent of chaos in the game instead of being like a solid duelist that goes in for the team. Cryocells is just not 100% peaking with confidence all the time, and Boostio is kind of feeding a lot of the time on attack. Um, and yeah, it's sort of like back to kick off 100 Thieves without a lot of practice, and some moments of even like last year's 100 Thieves where just a lot of the stuff that makes this team potentially good is kind of falling apart. And yeah, it's a little bit worrying honestly because now that you've got a bunch of new maps and new agents to integrate, and you have some of the least amount of practice on it because you went to Shanghai and did relatively well there, riding your bind. And yeah, I guess TFE, what's the hope? Sell me the hopium. You were 100 Thieves hoper at the beginning of the year, so sell me some hopium on this team.
Did you just cut out? Are we still live?
You're muted. I can't hear you.
I think he left.
You're still muted.
He's dead. Well, I don't know what happens here.
Hold on. Hello?
Hello?
Okay, we're back. I don't know what happened with Discord. It just restarted.
Oh, okay. Are we still recording?
Yeah. We're still recording.
Okay. Well,
So
you can leave that in if you want. Just me confused.
sell me some hopium on 100 Thieves. You tried to. Discord was like, nah, this guy's just spitting
Yeah,
bullshit.
he's
So
saying they don't. Discord knows like there is no hopium for 100 Thieves. The hopium for 100 Thieves. Whew, the hopium for 100 Thieves. I did not want this question. The hopium is that they play against MIBR and Loud
okay.
in 2 of their games, and they maybe can win those games, particularly the next game, MIBR. Maybe they can get some confidence. I think there is a problem with the way, like, there's a difficult concept to kind of explain. Like, the way that vibes are created in this team by Boostio
Mm-hmm.
only really works when you're winning. Right? So Boostio, when 100 Thieves are winning and he's standing up and he's yelling and laughing at the other team, and the rest of the, the 100 Thieves players, who are perhaps a bit more reserved, a bit more shy, they're all laughing along and they're all having a good time, and the comms, end up being good and the energy is good,
Mm-hmm.
right? But the thing is, when you're losing, like Boostio still, I mean, you're seeing that in his tweets, right? Like Boostio still has that inner like confidence of like, no, I'm Boostio, I'm gonna talk shit no matter what. Like he's
Mm-hmm.
still got that, but you can't like get up on the stage and like do that when you're losing, right? Because like, what the fuck are you doing, right?
Right. You
It's
can't be
weird.
standing up after you lose 6 rounds in a
Yeah.
row.
And so then I think like when they start losing, it's like they don't, like the rest of the team then doesn't have that energy, right? I think 100 Thieves, when they've played well, you think of that game against G2 in the grand final, and it was like just a freight train that couldn't be stopped,
Yeah.
right? Like they started winning, and then it's just like their winning just compounds into more and more winning, right? But because those other players on 100 Thieves still don't have that kind of, I think, like full confidence and like that brash mentality, it, it means that when they lose, like as I said, like Boostio has to be a bit more reserved. And then I think they go back to the 100 Thieves that we saw last year, where everyone's just a little quiet and they don't fully maybe know what to do. and it's like, oh, we're losing, and they're just going to quietly sit there and lose. And I
Hmm.
think that that is somewhat of a problem for them. I think another problem, as you kind of pointed out, was that they didn't have as much time after Shanghai, and like they're playing a Haven comp that is quite old school, let's say. Although they are playing a KO, but I think that that brings its own problems as well on the map. That they
Hmm.
like in their first game that they played Haven against Furia, for instance. They're playing this Sova KO over towards A, and it's like they just don't like Asuna is using his KO knife at the start of the round over towards A, and it's like Furia will just avoid the knife. They'll then just walk down A long, and then by the time they're doing an exec on them, like you've got a Sova and a KO there, and you can't fucking stop them.
Yeah, stopping power is not
You know,
good enough.
yeah, you just don't have the stopping power to stop them, and Furia were just destroying them anytime they went there, and so that's a problem for them as well. And I think that on a map like Haven, which is a map, and I'm bringing up Haven because they've lost it in both the Fury and the recent Lev one. They got destroyed on it, right? So
Hmm.
like that clearly is like a bit of a problem map that people are like, oh, we can pick Haven against 100 Thieves and we'll win,
Hmm.
right? The reason I'm bringing that up is because like Cryo, I don't think it's a map that suits his jet style of play. I don't think marries well with Haven, right? Where he is a bit more of a. I think you need like a crazy guy, not the player, but like you need to be a bit loose in the screws. You need more Jing on like Haven, who's just gonna go or something, right? Like just be a bit crazy, be wacky, feel aggressive, feel the moments of doing stuff. I feel like Haven plays in that kind of more in that style rather than the kind of controlled. I'm gonna sit here for yeah, and it's not that you don't like sit down short with an op. Like sometimes you do, but that's only a couple rounds maybe in the game. And I think particularly on their attack side, it's and you saw that against Lev. I think that on their attack side against Lev, there was just like the coordination wasn't there. I mean, what was Cryo on their attack side? Yeah, like he only gets 7 kills,
Hmm.
and I think that this happened in the Sunset game as well. When I was watching that Haven game, it reminded me of the Sunset game that they played against Heretics when they got destroyed 13-1
Hmm.
at Shanghai, where like they had some ideas early. There was probably their prep and their anti strats and stuff like that. It didn't work, and then they panic. Then it's like we don't know what to do, right?
Yeah.
And I'm watching some of their rounds and there's some of their ideas, and it's like you see them at the start of the round, like we'll drift towards A, like oh let's go and take A, and then like maybe like two people walk forward a bit, and it's like oh no come back to mid, and it's like they quickly they quickly just come back to mid, and everyone comes back to mid, and then they default to mid a bit, and it's like oh shit, what do we do now? Oh let's go towards C. No, don't go towards C. Let's fuck it, let's go A. Like it's a bit like it does look like a messy, and it reminded me of that Sunset game because that's exactly what happened in that Sunset game where you saw Boostio, and that was a game where he got like no kills.
Hmm.
On their attack side in this game, he ended 2-12
Hmm.
against Leviathan. Like it's the exact same thing where Boostio doesn't know what to do. He doesn't have the answers.
Hmm.
His individual performance suffers massively from that as well,
Yep.
and then the team is just cooked, right? And then it's just the game is over, right? And I do think that that is a problem for them that I don't know how you solve it because again it's like how the fuck was this team so good at one map, but they
Yeah.
haven't been
You.
able to translate it to others.
Yeah. You would think that they would be able to, because what made them so good is not only did they pick a good comp, but they're just their fundamentals on the map were just really really good. Like they
Yeah,
understood like how to rotate, they understood when to rotate, they understood how to play the sites, how to retake. Like everything about the map was just well thought out. Um, and you know, I want to go back to this Heretics game that they lost because I'm super curious. I'm looking at their win loss matches. I'm wondering if there's this is so like armchair psychologist, but it's just something that like I've seen teams go through before, which is that they legitimately believed that they were like the best team in the world coming out of Americas.
yeah,
I think they legitimately believe that because they were just pounding everybody, right? It was not even close against any team in Americas. And yes, a lot of that was off of their bind, but they were owning people. And there was so much confidence, and Boostio's telling them this team is better than EG that won champs last year. Like, he was literally saying this in interviews. We are better than the world champions last year that I played with, and I know because I was there. And then they go up and they play against a team like Gen G, and it was close, but they lost. And then it's like a little bit of like a snap back to reality moment, where, wait, what do you mean we lost? Like, I thought we were the best team in the world. We should be beating this team. And they come back and they beat Paper X. Okay, that's that's good. Boostio knows how to call against them. He said, like, I have a really good idea how to beat this team. I think it's a team that matches up pretty well against their play style. But then they go against Heretics and they get plowed on Sunset, like you said, and then they lose on Bind in a close game. It's like now their best map has been beaten, and they got annihilated on their other map. And suddenly it reinforces, wait, we're not the best team in the world anymore. And all of that confidence that they had, all of that bravado that everybody was feeling, yeah, like we are unstoppable, we are going to be world champions. It's gone now. And how do you recover that? It's almost like they tricked themselves into like an alternate reality that is not real, and now they're having to like come to terms with that and realize like, oh, actually we have a long ways to go. Like the greatness is within us. It's there.
Yeah.
Like, we can be insane, but nobody's going to give us a tournament, right? Like, we actually have to go get the tournament. We have to go work for it. And a lot of these other teams are trying just as hard as we are to be good. And so we actually have to outwork them now. And this is a great transition. Let's talk about the Boostio content drama real quick, because both you and I do content for a living. We've been doing content for a living for a long time. And I don't want to read too much into it. It's just like random spouting off on Twitch streams and stuff. But I'm just curious, like, what's your take on this whole thing? Like, he was complaining about content and all this stuff, and then Zelsis responded, kind of talking with like maybe a little bit more elder statesman, a little bit more experience, wisdom about how content works and how you have to do this as a pro player. What's your take on this, TMB?
Like, I think that this got kind of blown way out of proportion, and I don't know. Was Nadeshot involved in this, talking about it as well? Like,
Yeah,
I think that
Boostio said
Nadeshot.
stuff. Nadeshot reacted to Boostio's stream.
I think Nadeshot probably made the big mistake here. Really,
Uh,
the like everyone has parts of their job that they don't like,
mm-hmm.
right? Like, and complaining about it is a normal facet of life.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a normal thing. I think that Nadeshot just made a big mistake and didn't help his team by shining a spotlight on it, essentially, of
Mm,
saying, of being like the guy who, well, you work for me, son. And in a public forum, going like, and kind of criticizing, I guess, in a way, your own player. Like, it's
right.
fine to have parts of your job that you don't like, and it makes sense that a guy who just wants to play a video game, just wants to play a video game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's what he sees as his job. He doesn't see, the content as part of his job. And, I'm sure he was just frustrated, and like, yeah, people complain about parts of their job that they don't like. That's a completely normal thing. And I think that it just got kind of blown crazy, partly because of Nadeshot, partly because, people are just looking for anything to say. And that's the thing. Like, it's a learning lesson for Boostio. Like, don't complain about your org in a public setting.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to badmouth your org or something you've had to do in a private setting, no one gives a shit. No one will
Honestly, I'm
give a
not a
shit.
huch fan of the purple that Acend chose. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I'm
I
kidding.
hard disagree. Purple's a great color, but yeah, just complain in a non-public setting. Nadeshot, I would say the same thing to Nadeshot.
Yeah.
Don't complain about your player in a public setting.
Yeah.
That's just not a very good idea,
Yeah.
right? Like, keep things in house. You're like, yeah, if you want to talk to Boostio about it, just talk to him behind closed doors. Why the fuck would you do it on Twitter? Like, it
Right.
just makes no sense. Just yeah, that's all I really have to think about it. And has that had an impact on their performance?
Maybe.
I don't know. Maybe slightly, right? But again, like, it's just like a general discontent maybe within, the team and what they're doing. But
Yep.
uh to me, they have big they got bigger problems than Boostio's, thoughts about content when it comes to this team. I think their map pool
Yeah.
is perhaps a bigger one.
Yeah.
But
So
go off, King. Tell me why tell me why Boostio should be cut.
I don't think Boostio should be cut. I do think it's like fairly immature to have that take on content, just because it just shows that you don't really understand like what the job is of a pro player. Like especially if you're a pro player who's like a very bombastic personality, like you're gonna become content, and that's just part of the reality. And it's good for you in the long term to be a bombastic personality that can be used in content, that should want to do that, because trust me, son,
Gonna keep you in the scene.
tens weathered a very rough patch in his playing career by being the biggest personality in the game. And
Mhm.
that kind of buoyed him through, like 2022, early 2023, just just because he's tense. Like he just went about his job, he was in their content, like yeah, he was working to be a pro player, to improve. Um, you know, streamed some, maybe cut down the streaming hours a bit, whatever. Regardless, because of his brand, he was able to kind of like, and there was lots of hate coming towards him, but he was just kind of like, doing his thing, still making the money, still like, even if Sentinels had been like, you're too expensive for the results that you're giving us, he would have been fine. It like takes some of the pressure off of you to have this brand to fall back on. Um, so yeah, it's a little immature from Boostio to do that, but I also can understand it, because when you're going through a rough patch, and especially if you're in kind of like a position of authority where a lot of the responsibility is on you, like every little thing can become a huge problem, right?
Yeah.
Because there's just a lot of stress. There's a lot of stress for the role that he's doing, and being like the energy battery for the entire team gets very tiring. So I can understand why he's feeling overworked, and it's not necessarily because of content; it's because everything around the whole team and his role and all that is kind of draining. Um, I want to talk a little bit more about their map pool and stuff like that. I kind of feel like this team should lean into Boostio's op a little bit more. Remember how good
Ooh.
his op was for EG? Like even though they had Demon One, who was a crazy good
Yeah.
opper, I think that this meta is very hard for oppers, and I think you're correct. Like if you're an opper that is willing to walk through smokes, take these timings, you can get value out of it. But if you're an opera that likes to like hold a pixel angle, get a pick, fall back, it's very hard to do that, because there's so much explosive utility where like you can't escape. You're at best you're getting one kill. Most of the time you're getting triple
Hmm.
flashed and like a dog is hitting you and you die. And so I think that either you need to be, you get smoked off on bricks on Haven A long, you have to walk through that smoke and get a pick and dash out. You have to like
Yeah.
take the C long angle really deep with like one person supporting you from Cubby or like a breach stun or something like that. And if you're
Yeah.
not doing that, you're getting zero value out of the op. You're fucking your team's economy, and um, you're probably losing the game, because you're basically just like a turret at that point. You're like a killjoy turret that doesn't do anything. You just get broken, you get
Yeah.
taken off the line, and then all of a sudden your team's in trouble.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, it's got
and
to the point now in Valorant that when you see someone just get like a normal up kill of maybe someone jump peeking, you
mhm.
do think like, oh, oh, you should have been that team should have been more aware.
Yeah,
Like back in the day, like I'm thinking like Yay Chamber days, no one would have even thought about it at all. Everyone's just like, yep, that's just an up kill. It is
yep,
what it is. But these days, I think people do think like, oh, you should be aware that they've got an up, and you should be aware that that's a likely position that they should play, and your round plan should be better to dealing with that. Like, that's I think where we're getting to with like, yeah, you can't just most of the time, particularly against good teams, you're not just going to be able to get away with just sitting in a normal op spot and, just hoping that they, contact into you.
yep. I agree. So
You go.
I mean, 100 Thieves prospects for making playoffs. How are we feeling? Not good. Okay.
Look, they play MIBR, and I think it might come down to that loud game at the end.
Yeah.
Uh,
Both
I
teams in
think
kind of a
that
dire spot. Maybe winning
yeah,
in.
yeah, I think that could be a win and in game. They play EG as well. I mean, that's going to be a crucial game. If 100 Thieves did manage to beat EG, then they're probably in a very good spot
Yeah.
because I think it will go on head to head first. Because EG have to play Lev, 100 Thieves, MIBR. Okay, they'll probably be MIBR, but Lev looks like that'll be a really good game actually.
Hmm.
That happens later today. And then you've got EG 100 Thieves. It's gonna get sorted out here, but I think on the current form right now, you have to say like surely like you think EG are better than 100 Thieves, right? Like EG would be favored for that game right now, given what we've seen.
Yes,
Uh,
I would agree with that.
so like if they lose that game, they're in dire straits. They are
Mhm.
in dire straits, and there is still a chance that they make it through on points, right? That because they won, like particularly if Sen qualify, which it kind of looks like they will, to be honest, because they just look good.
Right.
There is a chance that they still make it because they won America's the last time, right? So not all hope would be lost for 100 Thieves, even if they didn't make playoffs. But yeah, I think it's looking. I would be at this point. I would be very surprised if they made it through actual qualification.
Yeah, I think points is their best bet to make it to champs, and that would
Yeah,
rely on teams like Lev, probably Lev, G2, Crew, all making it through
yeah,
the qualification,
yeah. They need
something
the
like that.
teams on lower points to kind of
Yeah,
start doing well, and they need that. Well, they need Sen to qualify. Basically,
yeah.
they would have to have. If Sen didn't, for whatever reason, manage to qualify, that'd be funny if Sen just intentionally lost, just to not send 100 Thieves through.
Rob Moore would not stand for that.
No,
No.
no, I don't think anyone would, to be honest. But it'd be funny at the very least. Uh, okay, that's 100 Thieves. Let's talk about another team. In I don't think chaos is the right word, but certainly it hasn't gone great,
No.
and that's NRG.
Yeah.
Because NRG, I don't think they're mathematically eliminated, but they're
Essentially.
they're essentially eliminated. They're gonna need to have a bit of a miracle here to just make playoffs. And there was even, I don't know if you saw it, Demon One posted on Twitter, announcement soon.
Hmm.
Eyes emoji. I don't know what that does. That is he?
Is
Are
that
we bringing him back?
yeah, I mean, if he's
Like
on
what
the
other?
bench,
I don't know.
if he's on the bench and there's like no chance they make it, they might as well throw him back in the ring, get some more experience, start building towards the next. I mean, okay, so first of all, I'm gonna hold the L. I said that there would be no problems for energy. I thought this change would be good for them. And I think there's some argument that, like, from a structural standpoint, it has been good for them. I think
Oh,
that
they're better. Like they are better than they were before.
the
Like
game,
that's the thing that
yeah,
you have to
the
keep in
games
mind
that
as
they're
well.
playing are much better than they were before from a macro standpoint, from a strategic macro movement, all that stuff. But man, coming into Split 2, playing Sentinels G2 back to back is rough, first of all.
Yeah, yeah. And they're playing probably the best two teams in America.
Second of all, the game against G2 yesterday was kind of the moment where I was like, I don't know. I have not seen a team lose so many duels, like individual moments where it's like, oh, this round could go their way if they could just shoot. And they
Yes.
could not shoot yesterday in a lot
Yes.
of cases. And this is no hate at G2 because I think G2 are generally a very, very solid team, but they're a team that has always kind of been like this is not a superstar
Yeah.
laden
G2 aren't
roster.
known for their aim.
Right. They're not known for their aim. They have good aim. They have good mechanics, but they're not known for their aim. And if you're
Yeah.
getting like hard diffed in like every situation, every 2v2, every 3v3, every scrappy round, you're just losing aim duels to G2 and then you're getting kind of blown out of both maps, like it's not a good look for you.
Yeah. I mean, you could even argue even more worrying was that in some of the round, like, I mean, FNS is getting run rings around by Valen. Some
Yeah.
of the rounds that G2 had, it, it was like what you would expect an FNS team to be doing to G2. And I think interestingly enough on Bind, like G2 were doing some of these really cool like contact plays. NRG had no fucking clue what was going on. They ended up in their fucking spawn in one round. Like
Yeah.
like just they were getting completely fucking destroyed mentally wise at the start of this game. And then on their attack side, NRG, it was a lot of just grouping up and doing
And
a hit,
hitting. Yeah.
which I
Which
mean,
makes sense because of their comp. I have to talk about
yeah,
their
it did.
comps.
Yes. Let's talk about their comps
I have to
because
talk about their
I
comps.
hated both of them. But you go first.
Okay. So to me, Energy and like the Chet FNS duo has always been, a little bit like too Counter-Strike minded, but also they've been pretty good at innovating in this game. Like they've found stuff that works for them. They've been kind of like the first movers on some of the agents and some of the ways that they play the game. And so when I looked at this map pool, I was like, oh, they're going to Haven, which is like one of FNS's best mid-rounding maps. They've always been good at this. They could literally just run the default comp and probably, maybe grind out a win through just like sheer calling and like protocols and stuff like that everybody should know because the map has been in the game forever. And then
can I just quickly talk about this as well?
Yes.
That their map vetoes make no fucking sense. So in their first game against Sen, they banned Lotus. Oh, sorry, they banned Haven and picked Lotus. In this game against G2, they banned Lotus and picked Haven. They are a new team. How, like, what are you fucking doing? What? Like, if any team has a permaban, it should be you.
Yeah.
Right? You should have a permaban. And you definitely should not be picking a map, losing it because your comp is dog shit on that map, and then thinking, oh, fuck, well, we've got to ban that map now because we have no idea what we're doing, even though that was probably the map that we felt best at going into the year. Otherwise, we wouldn't have picked that map. So,
Yes.
and it one of Sen's better maps anyway, so it didn't really make any sense to pick it anyway against that team. So that's a shit map pick anyway against that team that you were playing against. So that didn't make sense.
Yeah.
And then and also, you're banning the map, the one map that you perhaps had more time, or the same amount of time on as other teams. So you shouldn't ban that map because that's the map that you should, in theory, have the same amount of prep on as everyone else. So that doesn't make any fucking sense either. And then the second week, you literally fucking swap it round and ban, well, what we thought our best map was. Now let's ban that and let's pick Haven instead. Yeah. What are you doing?
And this leads
you go on about their comps.
This leads exactly into the point that I'm about to make, which is that this team brought in 2 new players and just decided to immediately start sprinting. They didn't warm up at all. There was no stretching. There was no, walking on a treadmill for a few minutes. They just immediately threw like 600 pounds on the deadlift bar and just tried to start deadlifting. They started trying to run a 100-meter dash with no stretching. I'm like, surely you come into this like, okay, you've got this core that's played together forever. They played, a couple years ago, so maybe you lean into maps like Ascent that haven't changed. Maybe you lean into Breeze that hasn't changed. Maybe you lean into Haven that hasn't changed, or, like, as far as the map goes. Sure, you could probably play some old Bind stuff, maybe, but the meta has kind of changed on the map. So I thought they would be okay. Like, I thought their map would be fine because they could just, like, play old shit that they already know how to play. But then, in this G2 game, they go into Haven and they play some wild shit. Clove, Deadlock, Fade, Omen, Yoru. They're putting Ethan as their main opper on Yoru. They put Victor on Clove, which literally makes no sense. Why would you put him on Smokes? Why would you put him on a duelist smoke character that doesn't even fit the map that well? And then you play FNS, one of the most like lurky info sentinel players ever, and you put him on a sentinel that has no info. And not even that, this map works with Sage to like, block off B and like, reinforce. They play Deadlock, which is just Sage, but your wall doesn't actually block anything. You can still be shot through it. And we saw that multiple times where they use the Deadlock wall and then it just, if it was a Sage wall, it was a fine wall, but if it was a Deadlock wall, it was dog shit. And like, I just did not understand this comp choice. Like, it didn't make any sense to me. You're playing 2 seizes, right? You've got Deadlock, Ravnet, you've got a seize. So you want to grab people and hold them in place, but then there's no utility to go on top of that. Okay, that's kind of weird. You have 2 decay abilities with the seize and the clove. You have no damage utility to go on top of that. Like, what are we doing here, guys? None of this comp makes any sense to me from like a pure logic standpoint. And then you go to Bind, which has a very, 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 very clearly defined meta at this point, which is 100 Thieves comp is the best. And if you don't know what to play, that's like different than that. You should just play 100 Thieves comp. Skye is terrible on this map. Skye is not a good agent on this map unless you have a second initiator, which should be a Fade or a Gecko, preferably a Fade, and probably you should just be playing Gecko instead of Skye, just across the board anyway. And then they go back to literally like 2021
Ascend 2021.
2021 bind where you're just playing solo Sky and trying to just like pop and plant with Sage and play post plant with a Viper
Yeah.
that is one Molly now. Like, what the fuck are we doing? And then you look at their other two comps on Lotus. Lotus trying to innovate again with the Clove. Not a good comp. I mean, maybe could work. Maybe it's not that bad, but like, bro, you have two people that haven't played a competitive game in like 6 months, and you're trying to play brand new shit, and I just don't understand. Like, focus on like one or two maps, play default shit on the maps that you already know, instead of trying to reinvent the wheel with like a month of practice. Like, there's no fucking way this would ever work. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know who's in charge of this, whether it's Chet, whether it's FNS, whether it's everybody. Not well, man. They have 4 coaches. They've got FNS back. How is it? Like, what are they doing, TMV? What are they doing?
Look, let me start with Lotus because I'm convinced that Bunker started playing Clove on Lotus, knowing that they could still win Oxygen
Uh huh.
by doing that.
Is that where
Just
this
to
comp came
convince,
from?
I think it was. Yeah, it's definitely from NA. The Clove stuff is definitely from NA tier 2, and I'm convinced that I think it was Oxygen who played it first. I might be wrong on that, but Bunker's mastermind plan was to start playing Clove on Lotus so that other people would start picking it up, knowing that they could win anyway, and everyone will start thinking it's good, even though there is literally no fucking way that it's better than Omen. Like there is literal 0% chance. Just like never. It's never better than Omen. Uh, so we've convinced people there. The Haven comp. I mean, like, look, Yoru Omen Fade is like a 3-agent combo
That's
that
pretty
makes
cool.
sense,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, like it makes sense. We've seen it before. I think Navi tried it back on Lotus back in the day. I think at some point as well.
I don't know if it makes
We've
sense on
seen
Haven, but those agents do make
yeah,
sense
yeah, yeah.
together. Yeah.
Yeah, like those 3 agents at least have like there's a synergy there, there's a deafening effect, like we get it. Okay, cool. Makes sense. Deadlock, I think on Haven as a map, like it's a map where you get a lot of fast floods and stuff like that. Okay, I can sort of picture where that is kind of coming from, but as I kind of pointed out on my stream yesterday, like actually getting your like sonic sensors in place before that flood retake comes in on Haven, I think is not going to be that easy just because the way the map's laid out. The way the sites are laid out, other than on I think it's gonna be not the easiest to just think like, oh, I've got time to just hold out a sonic sensor and slap this down,
Yeah.
like on the back of C. Like it's just not gonna happen very easy for you. And again, the Clove just makes no sense, right? It legit makes no sense whatsoever. If you
Yeah.
want a second smokes, play Viper, right? If you want a duelist type agent, or if you just want to say to Victor, just go out and frag, play ISO.
Yeah.
Right, like there is just like for either scenario of what you're trying to go for with Clove, there is just a clear better option,
Play Reyna
right?
over Clove. Like
Yeah,
legitimately.
like there is just clearly better options no matter what way you're kind of going with it, right? Whatever you're hoping to get from Clove, like if you played Viper, you'd have better defense sides, right?
Yep.
Which they struggled with as well, and it would just be a better smokes than Clove is. Or as I said, like, yeah, play Reyna or ISO if you just want to lean into, hey, we're just going to go heavy frag stuff. Like, there's agents that will do that for you as well, right? So this just didn't make any sense to me. And as you say, like, bind, I said it was interesting that NRG played their attack style in that way, but you're right. Like, they have to. They have 2 flashes,
Yeah.
and that is it. Like, they have to go. There is only one way of playing that comp. And normally it's going to be towards A as well, because taking B is probably not going to be easy enough with that comp anyway.
Yeah.
Right? You're probably not going to have enough to, manage to take long, maybe try and take hooker. You just don't have enough fucking util to do that.
Yeah.
Right? With the comp that you've picked. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know whose read this is. I don't know if it's FNS coming in and saying, let's play this shit. I honestly have no idea who's cooked up this shit, but
Yeah.
it is shit. Like
Yeah.
that is what I would say. It is really not very good for where the game is currently at.
And I'm sure
And
people are going to point to Victor's 1 in 7 first kill, first death on bind on Raze and be like, this guy is terrible at. Dude, trying to play entry Raze when you have no utility on this map is impossible. Like, there is no way for him to get good stats on this map, even if he is on Raze. Yeah.
it was a rough showing from NRG overall. And look, we like when people cook. You
Yeah.
know, I think we're both fans of when people try stuff, and I'm always willing to get like, like I saw the Haven comp and I was like, I don't know about this. I don't really get it. But I'm willing to give you the benefit of the doubt first and see it,
Sure.
But then after seeing it, it's like, okay, well, this just clearly isn't very good.
Yeah.
And again, we come back to the same issue of, FNS. I mean, like, let's be real. In the modern day of Valorant, you got someone going 4-18 on a map. Like, yeah, you're not gonna fucking win.
Yeah.
You're just never gonna win with someone going 4-18. We've all been there in our ranked games. You're just like
Yeah.
you just don't have a chance. Like, you just don't have a chance. Let's be real.
Every round is 4v5. It's just
Yeah,
not possible. Yeah.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
just not really gonna happen.
So are
Okay,
energy
so
cooked, TMV? Are they done? Is it over?
uh, yeah, yeah, it's done. Like
Remake the roster for next year?
I don't know what they'll do with the roster next year. It'll be interesting to see, but I think it's this team is over. It's done. Um, there's maybe even a possibility if it continues, like if they lose their last two games as well. I think there's maybe a possibility that FNS and by extension then maybe Tom, just decide like, oh, okay, we can't do this. FNS just goes, okay,
Just
it
back
turns
to
out,
streaming?
yeah, I enjoyed streaming more than
Fucking hell,
just
man.
getting. I think that is that not a possibility. Like if they get railed in the last two games and don't win a map, like I
Yeah.
would just think like, oh, okay, streaming is more fun than just getting fucking bodied every week.
Yeah.
And then having a bunch of people, call me a fucking. I don't know if you saw that comment of someone saying it's like watching a bronze player like have a make a wish. You
Oh,
know, go.
that's rough.
I know. So you're just getting like mega flamed by everyone. Um, and from where FNS was, right? And everyone was before, like, that's the thing. Before FNS came back, everyone was like, oh, bring back FNS. He's gonna be so good. He's gonna be so good. And then we've had two games and people are already like, this guy's shit. What the you can't win a game these days. And I mean, I guess I just said it as well, but
Was this the
it's
Joe Biden debate moment for FNS?
oh no.
Let's move on from that.
Yeah, let's move on.
Whew.
So quick little thing here. Well, should we do China first quickly?
Yeah,
What do you think?
what's going on in China, TMV? What's going on in
What's
China?
going on in China? The big headlines in China are EDG, panic, panic, panic. The thing, it's a weird situation for EDG because they are in champs.
Yeah.
That no one can catch them on points no matter what.
Yep.
So, like, they're it's kind of weird. You could say on one hand, oh well, they're not trying, or they're just experimenting because they've already made champs. It's like, why do they have to get? And that is fair, and they lost to Wolves, which is a deep embarrassment. And then lost to DRG, which is maybe less of an embarrassment. And they did beat Nova, so maybe things are on the up and they're improving again. Um, but there's definitely a big wobble with EDG, I think overall. FPX did lose a game to
Mhm.
Trace, but it was close, at least on map 2. So I wouldn't really worry too much, and they won their last two games. So still think FPX are fine. Billy are the continual big risers. They've won 3 games in a row. They they'll be waiting on FNS to make it, but he's not going to, because
Yep.
they'll be there. It seems very likely that Billy will win that.
Wait a second. The Billy rise, the FNS downfall doesn't even need to happen at an event. It's happening. It's happening
Yeah,
across the
it's
globe.
happening across the globe. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just like a yin yang of the world. Billy get good, and FNS can't handle it. Um, and then there are some other, trade like it could actually get quite competitive between some of these teams. Like I think one team is going to end up missing out because EDG have already made it on points.
Yep.
FPX will almost certainly go. And then you've got like AG, Trace, Billy, DRG maybe, who are
Yep.
like 4 teams that like on their day could easily do it. And I think whoever doesn't make it will be pretty disappointed that they didn't personally.
Yeah.
Um, but if I had to guess, it'll be FPX, EDG, Trace, and Billy.
Yeah. I think that's probably fair. I could see Trace just choking again. Maybe they just
Yeah,
haven't.
Trace just become the C9 of China, where they
Yeah.
just can't make an event.
Yeah.
That could happen.
Yeah, because I mean, all gamers has definitely taken some steps in the right direction. Even Nova has gotten significantly better. They've made quite a few roster moves, and it's starting to look a bit better. JDG is starting to finally recognize some of that rare Atom talent
Did
that
he
they
die
had.
again? He
And I
did.
think DRG is maybe kind of being found out. It's like, oh,
He
if we
died
can just
again.
avoid Vukashu,
Well, I don't know if this is getting kept in or
we
not. It
win.
probably will if he's still
Um,
recording.
my
Then again,
Discord
can
is
he hear
restarting
me?
again. What the heck is
I don't know
going
if he
on,
can hear
Discord?
me.
TMV, are you back?
I was never gone.
Okay, well, we're back. But yeah, you're flaming Dragon Ranger Gaming aside from Fukushu again.
Was I? I mean,
I don't know.
DRG, they are what they are.
Yeah,
I mean, Vukashu. I mean, the game against CDG is funny to look at. He's plus 29.
yeah,
He's 54 and 25. Um, and yeah, the next player is plus 5. This is a game they won 2-0. And then we got a -3, -8, and a 0. So yeah,
yeah,
plus 29 on his own. That's it's pretty good against
yeah,
EDG. Like
yeah.
not against some farmers, against EDG as well.
I
Pretty
think it's
good, I'd
pretty
say.
cool that FPX has continued their rise. Honestly, they, obviously they did lose one game to Trace, but they're still continuing to do their own thing. Like they've got different comps. They still are doing some
Mhm.
weird stuff, but they're kind of like solidifying their identity. They definitely look like the best team in China at the moment. Um, and I am curious to see what EG comes out during playoffs because they picked up two players. One of them is playing instead of Howdong
Yep.
now, which is Simon.
Yep.
I think Howdong has been kind of like the underperformer, like the heavy underperformer all year. Nobody was the other person that was kind of on my chopping block, but I think he's now their IGL. I think,
I think so too, but I don't know.
which I guess makes sense. Maybe he'll play a little bit less crazy on Sova, and he'll just sit back and help his team. Maybe.
Maybe.
They in their game against Nova, they did do one interesting thing, which is that they kind of leaned back into the smoggy Kong like
Yeah.
1-2 punch, which I think is kind of what made them insane in the past, which is Smoggy is like a very, very good duelist. And in the past, they were like, all right, Kong, you're playing KO. Smoggy's the duelist now. That didn't really
Yeah.
make any sense to me. Now
No.
you've got both of them playing like the impact roles, and maybe that'll work out better for them. So I could see them being pretty good in the playoffs and maybe even, you know, challenging FPX for the title potentially.
Yeah. I think the big advantage the FBX have just in general when going to internationals is they play such a different style to everyone
Yeah.
that it's like they can use China as almost like a playground to test
Yeah.
whether an idea works, knowing that, they'll probably be fine and win. And then, whatever does end up working by the time they get to an international, they can then work, use the ideas that they know are good. And, then kind of just cook up some stuff as we saw at Shanghai that, kind of bamboozles teams because they just aren't used to playing against it. So yeah, that's China. Now you got a little thing here about roster moves that are interesting. Were you referring to any particular roster moves?
I was just, were there any that kind of caught your mind? Like Redgar gets benched.
Redguard did get benched, yeah, which I think again, like you're looking at Giants who are a team that I don't think are mathematically eliminated, but are pretty much eliminated, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's perfectly fine. We saw MLBR do this as well. We saw their players play and actually win their first map as well.
Hmm.
Which I think was a starting point for them. I think that it just makes sense to if you're eliminated, like why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Why not? Why not give these people a chance and have basically an extended trial? Just a trial that is just going to give you much more information, than an actual normal trial in the off season. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think it just makes sense, and I don't have a problem with any team kind of if you're eliminated making changes now. In fact, I'm surprised again that maybe it's out of a sense of loyalty or something, but that other teams,
Yeah. Start
are doing
rebuilding
that
now.
more.
Yeah. Start
Yeah,
rebuilding now.
you might as well. Yeah, just start your off season early.
Klaus and MTA is an interesting move. So,
Yes, that one is more interesting because that's a team that is in the playoffs right now and
mhm.
is very likely to make the playoffs.
Yep.
Um, and I did think it was a bit strange because like in that game against Sentinels as well, like they played a very good Sentinels team close, like really close.
Hmm.
It was a really competitive, really good game to watch. I know it was a 2-0, but both maps were close. So I was a bit shocked by this, but the way that they kind of talked about it as an explanation was that they feel like they've been struggling and on a bit of a downswing. Maybe that's more of a kind of overall scrims kind of thing. Apparently, Kesnet is now going to be the IGL,
No,
which
it's bullshit. That's bullshit. That was a meme.
oh,
It's
that was
it
a meme.
yeah.
It's back to Melsa.
It's just going to be Melser IGLing, and MTA is going to come in
Okay.
and add more firepower to this team. I think this
Okay.
move is fine. It's a little unfortunate that it's like you just look at the scoreboard in the Sentinels game. Klaus -14. He's the lowest in the scoreboard. He's the one that gets subbed out. They bring in MTA. Um, it's just going to be Shy full time Sentinel instead of Klaus and Shy kind of like playing double Sentinel. And then I assume Melzer will just play like the Viper when Shy's on the Sentinel role. MTA is a very good player. He was like
Yeah,
one of my potential, like, this guy could be rookie of the year material after kickoff. I thought his utility on agents like KO and like the flash initiator agents was really 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 good, and his firepower is very very high. So I actually think this is potentially a super good move as long as he's like still kind of in that form. I think he was out because like he broke his arm or something like that, broke his wrist, and so
yeah,
I don't know, like it's not like a sports injury where sometimes like you hurt
yeah.
your
Oh,
knee
he
and
tore his
you're
ACL.
just never the
Would he be
same
back?
player again. I assume it's probably not the case in Valorant, but who
Yeah,
knows? He was very very good. I mean, I think one of the things that people were talking about with Crew is that it was cool how they had like two IGLs that were both like, maybe doing lots of good calling, but do you need two IGLs? Maybe not. Maybe you just need a little bit more firepower to beat a team like Sentinels, and that's kind of what they thought.
yeah,
Um, I think at this point, I would probably say that Adam has like earned my trust that he
yeah,
probably knows what he's doing.
yeah,
And this is not just kind of like a reactionary, oh, Klaus went -14, get this guy out of here. We need more aimers. I think it's probably been something that they've like thought about and talked about internally a bit and came to the
yeah,
conclusion that this makes the most sense.
yeah,
Obviously, if they look like shit this week, then unlucky. But
yeah.
my
The
guess is that
doubts
they'll
will come
probably
back.
be pretty good and should be kind of a threat to maybe even make champs.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see that. I mean, Atom kind of, I think, I mean, as soon as he came into crew last year, they almost instantly improved. So,
Yeah,
and obviously made champs through LCQ. So I think that, yeah, I think Atom has earned people's trust. I think the only weird thing for me was that, Melsa started the year IGLing and
right,
then was not the IGL because he said he didn't enjoy IGLing. That's the kind of only
right.
like thing that I find a little strange about it, if that is going to be the case. Um, because yeah, you would have thought like, oh, this guy doesn't want to be an IGL. Well, no,
Maybe,
you're being the IGL.
yeah. I mean, maybe at that point, being the IGL was not fun because there was like too much microing that he was having to do. But now the team has developed and maybe like Heat has come in
Yeah,
as maybe a sort of second caller potentially. I don't really know what their team dynamics are, but maybe the environment is a bit easier to work with at this point. But yeah, it is a good point that somebody who was the IGL got kind of replaced as the main IGL, coming back to be the IGL. It can always be a little bit weird, but we'll see.
yeah. I mean, I still think they'll be pretty good. Anyway, anything else? Do we want to do this team's pick a team? Pick a
Yeah,
team per region?
I want to. I think this will be kind of
Okay.
fun. So if you had to invest in a team, like let's say you could buy into a team to get 5% of the champion skin sales money. So what team would it be? And if you had to kind of short sell a team that's doing well that you don't think is going to make it, you have to divest yourself of one team and then invest in another team. Who would that be?
Oh man,
Per
well, am
per
I doing one
region.
each region
Yeah, per
per
region.
region?
Let's start with
Okay, let's
Americas.
start. Okay, well, you want to start with Americas? I
Yeah.
mean, you know that I've been in on EG.
Yep.
I've been an EG believer for a hot minute right now. Um, Interesting. If we were just doing in general, I might actually say crew as well because I feel like everyone's EG stocks are quite high right now.
Yep.
So like, if you're asking me like pick a team that you don't think is as high that could be better, I think yeah, crew would be another option there. In terms of a team that I don't think will do as well, that maybe is doing okay right now. Oh, that's a tough one. Let me think about that. A team that's doing well. See, like, where are the Cloud9 stocks? Because I don't think Cloud9 are making it.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't think they have a good chance. Am I selling the Lev stock again?
I
I don't think I
mean,
can at this point. I think Lev looked quite convincing.
yeah.
I don't think I can sell the Lev stock. So I'm out on Cloud9.
Okay, you're out on Cloud Nine and you're buying into EG.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's fine. I think I'm out on 100 Thieves
Okay.
and I'm buying into Lev.
Ooh.
I think I was convinced by I was, it's the implosion cycle for this team. They're gonna
Yeah.
implode. They're not gonna
Every
implode.
team,
They're
every time they're
implode.
just about to implode,
Yep.
they play their best game.
Yep. Yeah, and I'm a reactionary Wall Street's bets GameStop buyer, so I'm gonna go ahead and buy into the GameStop Leviathan. They're overhated, underbought. Let's go. And yeah, I think 100 Thieves are cooked. So let's
In
move
the
on to
EMEA, oh,
yeah.
you want to do Pacific? All
Oh,
right, let's do EMEA. In
okay.
EMEA, even though the stock is high, I'm like someone who's buying Nvidia stock 2 months ago.
Okay.
Even though it's high, it's going higher.
Okay.
I'm buying Team Heretics
Okay. I
because I
dig.
think they're winning champs. Not
Okay.
just making it. I think they're winning champs.
Okay.
And I'm selling. Who would I sell? God, Navi's stock has to be pretty low right now. I'm selling Calming Core.
Okay.
I don't think Calming Core. They might make it on points. I don't think they'll qualify. But because they won the kickoff tournament, they could still go through on points. But
Mhm.
I'm I'm selling.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. And I'm buying Team Lit, not Team Liquid. I'm not buying Team Liquid. Um, I think I will probably sell. Ooh, the Karmi Core one is a good take. That is a good take. I think I'm gonna sell Foot though. I think
Ooh, okay.
I think Foot are good, but I just don't think they have. The thing is though, they're probably gonna make champs. Like they're.
Yeah.
Maybe it is Karmi Core.
I think
No,
stick with your guns. I think yeah.
I'm gonna
Go
sell
with it.
Foot. I'm
Go
gonna
with your
sell
heart.
Foot. I'll sell Foot. The question is, who am I buying? That is a
You said
tough
it.
one.
Team Liquid. Liquid.
I'm not
You're
buying
buying
Team.
Liquid.
I'm not buying Team Liquid. I'm not buying Team. I think. Oh my! I don't want to buy anybody except for Heretics because Heretics is so good, but that's such a cop
You
out.
can buy FNATIC.
I guess Fnatic. Maybe Fnatic is like one of those old school. Maybe they're like Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
They're never going away. They're always going to be a
Yeah.
solid. They're like Apple stock. Like,
Yeah.
people are kind of tired of them. But yeah, I'll buy Fnatic. I actually like that. I like that. That's like a solid. I'm buying in a pretty high point. But again, we're gonna make money as long as the world doesn't explode. So yeah, I'll sell Foot, buy Fnatic, and let's move on to Pacific.
In Pacific, man, this is hard. I'm gonna sell Talon.
Okay.
I'm selling. Finding a buy is hard here, but I'm gonna sell Talon.
Yeah.
Tell you what, I'm gonna stick with my initial thought.
Yeah.
I'm gonna buy Team Secret. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna buy
Okay.
Team Secret.
Okay.
At me.
That's fine. I think I am going to. Hmm.
It's not so easy, is it, in Pacific?
I think I'm gonna sell DRX. Just because. Well, I mean, is their stock even high?
I think after the last game, their stock is middling.
Middling. Yeah. I think I'm going to sell DRX because, I mean, listen, they were chokers when they had experienced players, so surely they're still chokers when they have a bunch of young players. Maybe they'll
That is
choke.
exactly how it works.
Yeah.
That's exactly how it works.
And
New players, but they go to a team and it's like the culture is just there.
Yeah, and
Definitely nothing to do with a small sample size.
I'm just gonna go ahead and buy Paper X because you know what, I want some of that skin money. They're gonna guarantee it for me. I think that maybe with these changes, they brought an assistant coach, they brought in a performance coach. Finally, maybe they will get over their issues. I mean, they're definitely going to go to champions, but I think maybe they'll hit their highest peak ever. We'll see.
Okay, quickly China. I'm gonna buy BLG.
Yep.
I'm still selling EDG even after the win. I'm still selling.
Okay. I like the BLG buy. I'm gonna go with Trace just because I want to see this team on land. I feel like they're a team. Although now the whole Boostio quote of Trace is slamming us on every map. Maybe that's not really that good of a stock tip.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just because
our map
Thieves
pool's
map
dog
is
shit.
not good. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's funny.
I'll still buy Trace, and I think I'm on board with you selling EDG. I think that team is it's they could be good, but maybe they're bad.
Yeah. Okay. Well, is that an episode?
That's an episode, TMV. Thank you for joining me. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you in a couple weeks. Peace.
Peace.